It begins with a moment that looks completely one-sided. An SS officer stands close enough that she can smell the oil on his uniform and the smoke on his breath. The barrel of his pistol is pressed against her head, steady and casual, as if this is routine. For him, it is. He has done this before. He believes fear has already done the work for him. In his mind, this is the final frame of the story. A terrified victim, a trigger pull, and another warning to anyone watching. But she doesn't react the way he expects. She doesn't beg. She doesn't freeze. She doesn't look away. She smiles. Not a wide, obvious smile. Nothing theatrical. Just enough to be noticed. Just enough to unsettle. For a fraction of a second. The officer hesitates. Not because he feels mercy, but because the moment no longer fits the script he's used to. The SS thrived on certainty. Clear roles, clear outcomes, absolute control. And in that instant, her expression introduces something dangerous. Ambiguity. That smile is not defiance in the dramatic sense. It's restraint. It's the discipline to keep every thought locked behind a calm exterior while standing face to face with death. She understands the psychology of the man in front of her. He wants fear. He expects panic. His power depends on it. By denying him that reaction, she quietly takes something away from him. His confidence. The officer lowers the gun slightly. Not much. Just enough. Enough to talk. Enough to reassert dominance with words instead of violence. And that choice, small as it seems, changes everything. Because words take time. And time is the one thing she knows how to use. She listens more than she speaks. She watches how he stands. How he shifts his weight, how he assumes obedience without checking for it. She notes the rhythm of authority. The way commands are given, the way guards assume compliance rather than confirm it. This is a system built on intimidation, not constant verification. It works because people are usually too afraid to test its limits. Her smile lingers just long enough to sell the illusion. To him, she becomes another broken civilian trying to survive by appearing agreeable. Non-threatening. Small. The danger, in his mind, has passed. And that assumption, so deeply ingrained in how power operates, is exactly what she needs. What the SS officer doesn't realize is that this moment isn't the end of her story. It's the beginning of his mistake. He sees control. She sees patterns. He sees submission. She sees opportunity. The gun, the uniform, the rank. All of it convinces him that the night belongs to him. But she knows something he doesn't yet understand. The people who survive terror long enough stop reacting emotionally to it. They start studying it. And once fear no longer paralyzes you, it becomes a tool. Something you can redirect, something you can turn back on the person who thought they owned it. That smile isn't courage for show. It's a signal to herself. A reminder to stay calm, stay observant, and wait. Because the most dangerous moment isn't when a weapon is at your head. It's when the person holding it thinks they've already won. Once that initial moment passes, something subtle but critical begins to happen. The threat doesn't disappear, but it changes shape. The SS officer moves on. Convinced the situation is resolved, and the machinery of control resumes its routine. This is where most people would still be frozen. Replaying the gun at their head, but she does the opposite. She starts paying attention. Not in a dramatic, obvious way. But quietly. Patiently. The way someone does when they know survival depends on understanding the environment better than the people who think they own it. The SS relied on repetition. Same patrol routes. Same shift changes. Same assumptions about who mattered and who didn't. Their power came from intimidation, but their weakness came from comfort. They believed fear had already done the work, so they stopped looking closely. And she understood that the moment someone stops looking, they become predictable. She made herself invisible by being exactly what they expected. Cooperative when spoken to, silent when ignored, never drawing attention. The uniformed men saw her as part of the background. Another face blurred into the mass of civilians they had already mentally dismissed. That dismissal wasn't accidental. It was structural. The system taught them that resistance looked loud, desperate, and masculine. Anyone who didn't fit that image barely registered as a threat. So she watched. She learned who lingered too long, who rushed, who cut corners. She noticed which guards drank. Which ones talked, which ones assumed someone else was paying attention. She learned how authority sounded when it was confident and how it sounded when it was lazy. None of this required confrontation. It required patience and the discipline to wait without revealing intent. The SS believed control meant visibility. That fear had to be seen to be effective. But she understood the opposite. Real power moved quietly. It gathered information while appearing harmless. Every routine became a map. Every careless habit became a crack in the system. The more relaxed the guards became, the more exposed they were. And the irony is that the very brutality of the SS helped her. Because terror makes people rigid. It discourages improvisation. Guards followed orders, not instincts. When something didn't immediately look wrong, they didn't question it. When something felt slightly off, they assumed someone else would handle it. That kind of thinking creates gaps. Small at first, but deadly if exploited all at once. She never rushed. Rushing would have given her away. Instead, she let their confidence grow. Let them believe the night would pass like every other. Let them settle into their routines, their jokes, their assumptions. The more normal things felt, the less prepared they were for disruption. What she was really doing was turning their worldview against them. They believed dominance meant safety. She knew dominance bred blindness. By presenting herself as compliant, she removed herself from suspicion entirely. By staying quiet, she heard everything. By waiting, she ensured that when the moment came, it wouldn't be met with resistance. But confusion. This wasn't about strength or numbers yet. It was about timing and misdirection. The SS thought they were surrounded by fear. In reality, they were surrounded by people watching, remembering, and waiting. And she was at the center of it. Calm and unnoticed, holding on to the most dangerous advantage of all. The enemy's certainty that nothing could touch them. By the time that certainty shattered, it would already be too late for them to understand how it happened. The shift doesn't announce itself with a single dramatic moment. It begins quietly, almost invisibly, the way real collapses usually do. The night settles in. Routines lock into place. And the SS guards move through their roles with the same confidence they've carried for weeks. They believe control is permanent. They believe fear has already done its work. And because of that belief, they don't notice when order starts slipping through their fingers. What happens next isn't chaos at first. It's confusion. A guard doesn't return when expected. A signal goes unanswered. A familiar shape in the darkness is suddenly missing. Each incident, on its own, feels minor. Something to be handled later. Something to be explained away. The SS system wasn't built to question itself in real time. It was built to assume obedience and react with force only when resistance was obvious. That's why the night works in her favor. She doesn't strike randomly. Everything that unfolds is deliberate, shaped by the patterns she's already learned. She understands who is isolated, who assumes backup that isn't actually nearby, who relies on intimidation instead of awareness. Darkness doesn't just hide movement. It erases certainty. And once certainty is gone, authority becomes fragile. As the hours pass, tension spreads unevenly. Some guards feel it immediately, sensing that something is wrong but unable to name it. Others dismiss it entirely, clinging to routine because routine has always protected them. Orders become shorter. Voices sharpen. The confidence that defined them earlier starts to crack. Replaced by the kind of alertness that comes too late. What makes the situation unravel so quickly is that the SS are trained to confront threats head-on. They expect resistance to look like rebellion. Loud, desperate, organized. But this is something else. This is absence. Silence. Gaps where people should be. They can't respond effectively because they don't understand what they're facing. Every attempt to reassert control only exposes how little control remains. By the time panic truly sets in, coordination is already gone. Guards move without clear direction. Some overreact, others hesitate. The hierarchy that once made decisions efficient now slows everything down. As no one wants to act without orders. And no one can find the right person to give them. Fear spreads, not outward, but inward, turning discipline into suspicion. Through it all, she remains ahead of the reaction curve. Not because she's stronger, but because she's already accepted what they're only beginning to realize. The system protecting them is failing. Every step she takes compounds their uncertainty. Every delay magnifies the damage. And the night keeps moving forward, indifferent to rank or reputation. By the time dawn approaches, the scale of what's happened becomes impossible to ignore. What the SS believed was an isolated disturbance is revealed as something far worse. A total breakdown. Survivors struggle to piece together the sequence of events, but the details don't matter anymore. What matters is the outcome. The balance of fear has flipped. The night ends not with a single decisive moment, but with the realization that control can vanish faster than it's ever imposed. What began as quiet observation has become a collapse so complete that explanation feels impossible. And in that silence, the message is unmistakable. Power that relies solely on fear can be dismantled by patience, precision, and the willingness to wait until the moment no one sees coming. By the time the night finally ends, the transformation is complete. What began as a moment of helplessness has turned into one of total reversal. A shift so profound that it leaves everyone involved reeling. The SS officers who thought themselves untouchable are now grappling with a reality they never anticipated. Their confidence, built over years of intimidation and routine, has been stripped away in hours. The chaos they never saw coming is not just physical. It's psychological. And it all started with someone who refused to give fear the power it demanded. Her actions don't just leave bodies behind. They leave a statement. Every movement, every calculated choice, every measured strike communicates something the SS could never have predicted. That even the most brutal systems, the ones designed to break people completely, are vulnerable. They are vulnerable because power, when reliant solely on fear, ignores adaptability, intuition, and courage. She became a force they could not compute. A variable that existed outside their rigid understanding of control. And that is what makes the legacy of that night so enduring. The survivors are left in a state of disbelief. Not only are they shocked by what happened, but they are terrified of what they cannot explain. The rules that had guided their actions, rules of discipline, of hierarchy, of assumed obedience, are suddenly meaningless. The fear that had once been a tool for enforcing order is now turned inward, consuming them from within. Each glance at a shadow, each sound in the dark, becomes a reminder that control is fragile and fleeting. Their own systems have betrayed them, and there is no one to blame but themselves. What she accomplishes in this single night goes beyond the immediate act of survival or revenge. It becomes a lesson in strategy, patience, and psychological mastery. By understanding the enemy, exploiting their assumptions, and timing her actions with precision, she turns fear into a weapon. Not against herself, but against the very people who sought to impose it. The night becomes a demonstration of how intelligence and resolve can overpower brute force. It is a story that illustrates a universal principle. That true power is not in domination alone, but in knowing when to wait, when to observe, and when to act decisively. And perhaps most importantly, her actions leave a lasting impression that extends far beyond the night itself. The story resonates because it shows that courage and cleverness can invert even the most terrifying situations. It reminds us that while oppression may rely on fear, fear can be neutralized, manipulated, and redirected when met with focus and determination. By sunrise, the psychological balance has shifted irreversibly. The SS officers who thought themselves untouchable now understand, too late, that underestimation is fatal. In the end, what started as a moment of extreme vulnerability becomes an enduring testament to human resilience and ingenuity. It is a night where a single person, facing overwhelming danger, doesn't merely survive. They reshape the battlefield of fear itself. Their story is a powerful reminder that systems of terror, no matter how entrenched, can be undone from within by someone who refuses to yield, who understands the enemy, and who is willing to turn every expectation against them. By the time the light of day arrives, the message is clear. True strength lies not in weapons alone, but in courage, intelligence, and the relentless refusal to be dominated.